Hey friends, Devin here with Backcountry Exposure. I've got a really exciting video to share with you guys today. That's actually the first of a new series of videos that I'm going to be sharing that is a video podcast style approach to doing some interviews and just some discussions with business owners in the outdoor industry. And the first one that we're going to do today is a sit down with Kris Cody, who is the owner of PAKA. PAKA makes some really awesome outerwear and some base layers, all from alpaca fiber. And I find that with the alpaca fiber becoming more popular, this is something I'm really interested in, especially from the aspect of getting a better understanding of where your gear comes from. And PAKA does a really good job at helping us understand where the gear that they make comes from. So this is a sit down with Kris Cody, the owner and founder of PAKA. So Kris, thank you so much for taking the time to come hang out with me today and talk about PAKA.
Thank you so much for having me, man.
Yeah, how you doing?
Good. Yeah, I was just saying, got off a call talking about our new Cusco flagship we're working on down in Peru, and it's awesome to hear you've actually been there and know Peru and have seen, the world that it is.
We're going to talk about PAKA, which is an outdoor outerwear apparel company. But it's super exciting because I've been really interested as of late, over the last year or so, to get a better idea of where my gear that I'm using is being made and how it's made and how it helps with sustainability and being able to kind of trace back to where that product is coming from. and
Mhm.
and then when I was introduced to PAKA, started doing some research on your website, which I genuinely appreciate, that there's so much focus on who you are as a brand, cool videos, cool imagery and stuff, but you talk a lot about your manufacturing and your values and all of that process that goes into making the gear that you make.
Thank you.
Like, tell me about that. Why Peru? What's kind of the origin of PAKA that brings everything to what you're doing now?
Yeah, it's almost like the product was birthed from just the culture and authentic journey to discover more about the alpaca fiber down in Peru. I I was just on a backpacking trip in 2016 through Peru, through South
Mm.
America actually completely, but I came across this alpaca sweater on my way to the West Coast and just had never touched a material like it in my entire life and was blown away by it. Not to mention the whole culture and the women weaver that had made it, and I used it in every single scenario you can imagine, as a pillow on overnight bus rides like we were talking about, or going through jungle, desert, mountain. It performed in all climates, and so that really surprised me. And then I got back to the US, and every time I wore it, people would always come up and ask where it came from. And so, I
Was it just like one of the classic traditional, really
very,
bright
yeah,
colored?
forest market kind of.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome.
But I just was really blown away by the fiber itself and myself doing a lot of outdoor adventures and just being big on like I travel a ton, that it would work and be there for me as a companion in all climates and whatnot. Because that's really
Mhm.
where the animal evolved, is this climate that you freeze and burn to death in the same day. And so out of that has this extremely functional fiber. But I had no business plan at all or any really even idea to make a business. I just kind of in that first year realized, people they know cashmere and merino, but nobody knew what alpaca was, and that for me just represented a huge part of my life for meaning, and how grateful the people were and how they opened their doors to me, this traveler that had no money down in Peru. And I just felt so connected um to Peru, and I ended up flying back on a one-way flight that summer and just started traveling all
Mm.
around. I met the original woman weaver who had made that sweater, Gregoria, and just started living alongside her family, working on prototypes, and just, yeah, they became like family. And that summer we finished a few prototypes that I launched out of my dorm room, and that was sort of the beginning of
Wow.
PAKA. But I got them cell phones so we could stay in contact, and I had this like little IKEA rack of the first original alpaca sweater that we'd made. Um and then from there the dream began of really what could it look like to change the apparel industry. And what, when you're talking about knowing where your things come from, I think that is just all of what we do, whether it's like the Weaver signature on each sweater that we make, or the traceability tag that comes on each product that shows you exactly where it came from. That was just from going to the source and building this alongside with no intermediaries. Like, this is just the most true version of what the clothing is, and communicating that directly to the consumer. And so
Hmm.
that's prompted a journey just to dive in. And from there I got really into the R&D in fiber and like science of building the most functional gear, because I realized like you can't guilt trip people into buying a product for sustainability or social impact. Even like,
Right.
the
Right.
Inca ID that comes on all of our garments that we make, that the team of Quechua women weavers in the Sacred Valley are making by hand, that it naturally is just like has to perform better as a final product when people know nothing about the brand. Like, if you
Hmm.
are looking at that next to a Patagonia or Lululemon, whatever the sort of alternative is, it has to work and perform. And so for us, I got really into natural technology and innovating with alpaca fiber to prove that nature can perform better than synthetics. I'm just blown away continually by two-thirds of all clothing is currently made from oil, and oil as a material like polyester, nylon, spandex, acrylic, all were pretty much mass commercialized after World War II, right? Like
Hmm.
plastic in general. And so
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
fact that we can use the word metastasized to that level of impact is incredible within 60 years, let's say, and finding microplastics all over the globe inside of 80% of Americans. And for me, it's, well, we can definitely do it in the other direction too if we've done that much as humans, and proving that nature can perform and we can build from nature and into nature and wear nature instead of wearing a jacket made from oil out in nature, respecting nature. Like, that idea is crazy to me. That is where we are, or plastic yoga mat, or like,
Hmm.
we should be sinking into nature. We know it's good for us, and that's our mission.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. I think that's great. I kind of want to go back to a little bit of that origin of the fiber itself, because you mentioned you go to Peru, you get this amazing sweater. It performs in such an awesome way, which, like, merino is super popular. You brought up merino.
Hmm.
Why why do you feel like, because PAC is not the only company that is using alpaca fiber,
Correct.
and obviously within the Peruvian culture, it in those really high elevations, you're getting destroyed by the sun, you're having crazy temperature swings, like, it works for them, and they how many
Survived
hundreds that thousands
alongside
of
the,
years it's been
yeah.
part of the culture. And but why do you think the alpaca fiber specifically, at least from my perspective, has been slower to get adopted? Why wait until 2023, 2024 to start seeing alpaca much more prevalent compared to like merino?
Yeah, it's really interesting. The reason I believe, based on all the, like, learnings and people that I've spoken with, is that merino was actually adopted as a U.S. military technology for just like gear. And so within
Mm.
military wear, everything needs to be made start to finish in the USA. And so the sheep and the whole start to finish, investment into technology accelerated sheep, I mean, wool, merino, to be adopted. And so that investment really brought merino to another level of just being used in the industry, and then also the machinery as well. The spinning frames the treatments, I mean, everything that it's merino has seen. And then also the alpaca animal, just being in South America and having evolved there. I mean, sheep are farmed in the sense that in New Zealand there are farms with thousands and thousands of sheep, whereas the alpaca actually are free roaming and there aren't farms. There's one family living with 60 to 90 alpacas, and there are
Hmm.
86,000 of them. And so it hasn't been commercialized because there's not one farmer, one big company that's like, let's make a farm with 10,000 alpacas and scale this. It's all still with one alpaquero family that lives alongside the alpacas, and that's what makes it so beautiful. It's all small scale.
And I guess, at least from reading on your website and what I've researched about PAKA, that makes the garment and just everything more traceable, right? Because how hard would it be for me to know where the merino base layer that I have, like which farm that it came from? Like,
Not that hard, honestly. Like, just
really?
yeah, I mean, the technology, especially with ZQ Merino, it's actually easier because for them, there's one farm, and so you can pinpoint that coordinate a lot easier rather
I see.
than
I
like
see.
our
Okay,
socks.
that
We
makes
have
sense. That makes
we
sense.
might have like 6 pins on the map when you scan that QR code of your socks and where it was made because it's aggregated, right? And so that yarn, the fiber being sourced, is then spun together into one yarn. And
Hmm.
so for us, it's actually a lot harder. And I think traceability you're seeing with a lot with cotton. I know Patagonia drives that pretty heavily, and there's no reason I think to not. Sheep Ink with the merino side, they do this like tag that comes actually it's inside of their garment that you can scan with your phone, and that brings
Oh,
you
cool. Yeah.
where that came
So
from.
not too far off from like a lot of the certified down suppliers
Correct,
and the traceability of ethically sourced down and that kind of
for
thing.
sure.
Gotcha.
Yeah, which
Gotcha.
is super
Cool.
important, right? Not only for knowing where it comes from, but that verification, authenticity, what you're saying about the treatment, ethicality as well. Especially with
Hmm.
like down, they're killing the animal to harvest those feathers, right? Like without we're just alpacas are shorn once a year for their health and hygiene. And
Right.
so it's just and then to be able to improve also where your things come from. Like if you know where they come from, well, you can also impact the life of that farmer, the alpacas living there, like we're starting to do within a project this year, which we're really excited about.
Well, I want to dive into maybe some of the science and the molecular
Uh-huh.
structure a little bit of alpaca, but then I kind of want to move into talking about the manufacturing and design of your products and some of the really cool stuff that I've been able to test. I'm actually wearing a fleece from PAKA right
So
now. It's
cool.
pretty cold, chilly in my house today. Nice
Where are you
winter day.
based?
And I'm in Salt Lake City.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, yeah. So we've got a nice wintry day going on. But I know that from a molecular level, the alpaca fiber is pretty unique in its ability to like thermoregulate and manage moisture
Yeah.
and and scent as well, like body
Mhm.
odor as well. Maybe talk about that and why they might be superior or inferior to other products and some of the pros and cons that you see from from the use of your products.
Yeah, alpaca on like the molecular level, you do a cross section of the fiber. It has these hollow air pockets, which we call medullated air pockets, that can trap heat, and that ultimately evolved from living in this bipolar climate in the Andes Mountains that changes on you so fast. And so the alpaca with all of the fluff, like you see this animal, and it's just like the most goofy animal ever, but it's also the most rugged animal that exists
They're so cool. They're
right?
cute,
Like
they're cuddly, but they're also
you would
like so
never
strange.
imagine it was so rugged when you look at it. It's such a
Yeah.
cute looking animal, but the fiber itself has had to evolve to regulate just those temperature swings in the Andes, and so that has produced everything that we talk about, whether it's the moisture wicking at so alpaca like fiber absorbs moisture half the rate that any merino or wool does. And so that means it wicks moisture double as fast, right? And
Hmm.
without moisture, also, you don't have odor. And so the reason, smell exists is because bacteria are able to fester on moisture, which produce odor, right? And so without that, you really can wear alpaca for days, if not weeks straight, and it not smell, which is amazing. I mean, we have this sock test of people trying,
Yeah.
like, they never smell.
Well, I'll say this, with this fleece that I'm wearing right now, it's not been washed since I got it, which it's been, I don't know, 6, 8 weeks or so that I've
Awesome.
had it. And I've had it out on at least 4 different trips, and I will actually sleep in it
So cozy.
because it's super cozy. It's really soft, and of course, like sleeping with your with your arms down to your side, you get super sweaty, and your armpits just
For
get
sure.
really stinky. And it's like maybe for 5 minutes after you wake up, you're like, oh yeah, there's some stink there,
Yeah.
but genuinely, I
The
can't.
smell test live on camera. Let's
Smell
go.
test live. Yeah.
You've seen Devin himself. That's
Or
awesome.
even standing around like a smoke from a fire. It doesn't seem to hold on to that
Right.
that stink as well either.
Right. Yeah, and
So
it's also alive in the sense of being able to regulate moisture and holding on to heat when you need to and letting go of it when it's hotter out. And so um, we're looking into that a lot. But yeah, the fact that it's lighter and warmer than wool, soft as cashmere, those attributes we're really trying to harness to just build a more functional garment. And when you look at overall weight, right, especially in backpacking, packing is critical for the adventures that you're going to be able to go on, your experience of them, and not having to carry, like, we've all had experience where we're overpacked, you know,
right.
and that makes for a miserable adventure, absorbing just like and appreciating everything that you're doing, the climate, I mean, the views. And so for us, we're just see alpaca as a natural way to solve that by packing less. You only need one great shirt, one great hoodie, and then the jacket too that we've been working on. So yeah, we really encourage people just to pack light and functionally.
Okay, so from a, I guess from a manufacturing standpoint, you're sourcing all of this alpaca fiber from small farms, families in Peru.
Yep.
But then what's the process beyond that? Because my understanding is everything stays in Peru. Like you're not, I guess not 100%, but you're not bringing all the fiber to some overseas factory
Right.
in Asia, and then it's coming to the US and then distributing. But like you're manufacturing in Peru, right? Like you have weavers and sewers, and you're providing jobs and everything for
Yeah.
families in Peru, right?
Yeah, like the Inca ID that's on every single garment is handmade by the team of Quechua weavers, which is now over 200. Yep. Yeah, there it is on that around the base layer. And that's really cool. At the same time, there's a limitation of technical machinery that exists in Peru for the R&D that we're doing to make the most functional garment. And that's
Gotcha.
been the biggest journey. And so our technical pieces, I mean, making, like that fleece I created out in Taiwan with like a really technical
Mm, okay.
partner to be able to develop that. And our focus is, of course, we want to make everything start to finish in Peru and invest in that machinery and actually scale Peru as a whole in doing so. But we can't wait for Peru to have and drive the machinery innovation to be able to make the most functional product from nature.
I see.
So
I see.
it's actually kind of like really driving a ton of trials, whether yarn or fabric, garment, the insulation, the outerwear. So that outerwear and the fleece are currently made out in Taiwan for that innovation purpose. But everything else, and of course the fiber, and of course every ink ID on those garments are sourced from Peru. And we're doing that as much as possible. And we really want to scale with Peru and invest to make it, because there's so many reasons for sustainability, but also impact to be doing that locally, within community. And for me, I was just on a dream to like build the most sustainable natural jacket that could decompose in your backyard. And Peru didn't have that machinery to make the most functional garment, right? And so like my journey has been, let's build this and then improve operations, but prove to the world that yes, we can do this with nature. And
Yeah.
that's been my focus.
So I guess the spread of products that you've got kind of range from everything from socks to some underwear
Hmm.
to base layers like what you're wearing, and then you've got some like sweaters, right?
Yeah,
Which
it's the
the
biggest
sweater was the sweater was like your uh,
original.
the original the hooded option, right?
Yeah.
So, but then additionally, you've recently released, because this is where I want to get into some of this technical stuff with the PAKA fill.
Yeah.
You've released the Apu parka and the lightweight puffers that
Hmm.
use an alpaca like sheet insulation, and then obviously the fleece, the PakaCloud fleece as well. But let's focus on the Apu with the PAKA fill and kind of like, I don't know how that came to be, because I find that really interesting when you've got more or less two different types of insulation that are the most popular: synthetics that are made with oil, like you said, and that kind of thing. But then you've also got all of your down insulations, and there's always that comparison of which is better. Synthetic can get wet, and you're going to stay dry for the or warm for the most part. If it gets wet,
Hmm.
down is going to compress better. But where does Pacafil fit into all of that,
Mm.
and how is it different? And maybe just give a quick introduction of what Pacafil is, and then let you go from there.
Sure. Yeah. Pacafil is an alpaca insulation that I spent years developing alongside some of the greatest R&D experts I've ever been blessed to meet, that helped uh, with his dream to build an insulation that could function better than any synthetic batting on the market in the sense of its thermal value. You're correct in that it's a batting, and so it's a sheeted insulation that is not free fill. And so with down, for the great majority of all outerwear produced in the whole wide world, there's down, which is from killing geese, but it's the feathers of those animals, and then synthetic, which is made from oil. And so those comprise the great majority of jackets that are made in the whole outerwear industry. Our job was to, and goal here was to make something from nature that could outperform the synthetics, and also be ethical in the sense that there's, for the well-being, there's the animals are being shorn once a year for that they're good in the sense of hygiene and being able to roam
Hmm.
and lots of reasons. And so Pacafil is the sort of in between, marrying a lot of the best properties from both, in the sense that it it's warmer than 95% of synthetics on the market. There's like one synthetic that I've seen now that performs better, like Primaloft Premium Gold, like their highest standard.
Gotcha,
But
gotcha.
Pacafil, yeah, its Clo value, which is essentially a thermal value where you put in a hot plate test, beats every other synthetic in the entire world currently out on the market that I've seen.
Interesting. Wow.
Down's different in the sense that you measure down because it's freeform from fill power. So essentially, when you do a test of fill power, there are feathers in a compressed vacuum that you see how far the weighted uh, lever drops down to give you that fill
Hmm.
power quantification.
Right.
With down,
Right.
as you outlined, it can get wet, which you lose all of your volume from, and that will kill you out on the mountain if you're out in a massive storm and your jacket gets wet and you lose your loft. That's everything. And so alpaca keeps you warm when wet, and that's the beauty, like we're talking about, of those fibers to actually trap heat inside of them, the medullated air pockets. So that's what's made this thermal value be superior to any synthetic on the market, and more ethical, let's say, than down, with some other functional benefits. It also is really hard to make it smell, like we talked about. Synthetics can smell with bacteria growing on them. And yeah, we launched this 2 years ago, the first prototype, and then went back to the drawing boards to make an even more technical jacket. That won
Mm.
the ISPO award last year and is something that has been receiving a lot of interest from other brands as well, like reaching out to use that in their jackets. Some name brands that
Oh,
I
cool.
wouldn't want to mention, but like we're exploring the idea of also enabling the lots of brands to be able to use this installation, because for us it's like, well, we definitely want to create and bring this to market, but at the same time, if there are brands that can do this at a much greater volume, don't we want to change the industry collectively for the better? And like hundreds of brands working to the same North Star is going to make a lot greater impact than one brand never changed the world in that sense. We need hundreds of
Right.
creators working to the same North Star. So we're trying to figure out how to do that, and it's exciting because it shows that consumers are really waking up. And to your point, people are really asking questions and wanting to know where the things come from, what they're made out of, who made them. And I mean, our jackets are traceable. Like everything that we make now
Hmm.
shows you where it came from. That insulation in your jacket, the fiber from your socks, all of it.
Yeah, and I think for the most part, the vast majority of people, because it's where the industry is going. The outdoor industry cares about sustainability and producing things in an ethical manner and
Definitely.
trying to also recycle as much. I mean, one brand that stands out of kind of their initiatives for 2024 is that when you're done with your gear and you feel like it has reached its life cycle,
Hmm.
send it back to them,
Hmm.
and they've got an entire process to break it down, recycle the down or the synthetic and all of the fabrics that previously, I mean, they're using Blue Sign
Yeah.
approved fabrics that are already recycled, and now they're recycling it again. And that life cycle becomes perpetual. And I think
What's the name?
I that's Nemo equipment,
Very cool.
and their endless promise, I think it's is what it's called,
Shouts to them.
where just trying to like make as much recycled aspects to the product as possible, so that you're not just adding more things to the landfill. Because I do think that that's important, because it's easy for us to say, well, I'm not gonna drink from plastic bottles anymore. That's not going to change. This is my opinion. That's not going to change the amount of plastic bottles that are still being made. But if the company is the one that's saying, "Hold on, like we're creating more impact than we want to be making. Let's do this instead." That to me has a bigger impact than as a consumer, as just one person. Doesn't mean that I shouldn't care about it,
Absolutely.
but I think it does. And even from like the microplastics standpoint, maybe we could talk about that for three or 2 or 3 minutes, and kind of like how that fits into your
Mhm.
into your business model. But I find that to be something that people are paying a bit more attention to as well. Do you have anything to say about
So
about that?
so much. It's actually funny because fleece is the biggest contributor in the apparel industry to microplastic
Is that
pollution.
right?
Yeah, because
Interesting.
essentially the way you make a fleece
Just
is
like just like a traditional fleece.
polyester. Yeah.
Okay,
So like over
polyester. Okay.
95, what's so funny is like fleece, if you look it up, the definition of the word is literally like the woolly covering of a sheet of an animal. Or and now with apparel, like you say fleece, it means it's polyester, which is non-natural. It's oil. And so when you say, oh yeah, like Patagonia fleece, it's made from plastic. And so that's just bonkers to me. And with what you're wearing, we're trying to put nature back into fleece and make something that performs better. That fleece tested more than 2 times warmer than any synthetic, like the standard on the market for fleece. Same GSM and everything, controlled for. But the reason why fleece leaks so many microplastics is because you essentially knit this fabric and then you brush it and you cut it. And so when you cut it, the microfilaments of the plastic are all dispersed. And so when you wash this, they're just leaking everywhere. It's like open fiber that's just falling out on the most micro level. And and what's really interesting that you pointed out is people are waking up because once it becomes a health concern, people start to make different decisions. We saw this with food,
Sure.
right? Like
Yeah.
organic, whole
Yeah.
foods, all of this really emerged, and people knowing that what they consumed would be impacting their health. And I think with clothing, there's a similar sort of trend being caught on, a little obviously behind food, in the sense of people knowing that does impact their health. When you have 80% of Americans with microplastics inside. I mean, the true scientific proof of, say, transdermal absorption for microplastics hasn't been proven in the great escapes. But when you look at that leaking fibers into then what you're drinking, it is. And they have found apparel, like the microplastic derivative of clothing in the Arctic. Like we have this environmentalist, Christina Mittermeier, who sees microplastics all over the globe, and her quest is to solve or to protect 30% of all of our waters, ocean waters, by 2030. And it's what we were talking about earlier. It's like we did this in 60 years, and this is already the impact where you can find this on the end of the globe, what we've industrialized. And so our focus is to
Yeah.
do it in the other
That's pretty.
direction.
That's wild to think about that short time frame and the impact that can come from it. That's wild.
We're trying to create awareness, but not pessimism, you know, like,
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
yeah.
But I think it is an important thing to be aware of, and the impact that it creates, but not get so like microplastic focus on it that it hurts your brain from
It
from,
can.
from all of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So we talked about PakaFill. Where does the PakaCloud in the fleece standpoint kind of come about as something new and exciting? Because I mean, when I'm wearing I expected it to be very itchy and kind of like, I don't know, have a reaction the way that like a full wool jacket would be like,
Mm,
if that makes sense.
just like
And
abrasive almost.
yeah, not super soft, kind of abrasive. And I've had another garment that was made from alpaca fiber that did have some attributes of being kind of itchy, and but the weave of it was way looser, and this just feels a lot tighter for the weave and how it's put
Hmm.
together. So I guess my question is like, tell me about PakaCloud and what's different about it, and
What you
and
point
and
out is
such.
like there's so much know-how that we've developed through R&D of making something that's so soft, right? And not have an attribute. And partially it comes down to the micron range that you're using of the fiber, right? The diameter, that is the prickly feeling that you get, and us using the finest fibers. But PakaCloud developed that in Taiwan, and so many trials to try to figure out how to knit a fleece. And we just got in new trials for this year's production, which we're so excited about, for solving even more of the fiber shedding that was happening on the fabric
Mm,
initially. And so it's like
gotcha.
it's a continual improvement, but we're just so excited because it's so cozy and so functional, and we're going to be coming out with a much lighter version of it and growing the whole fleece category for PAKA because it's sold
No, I
out.
want I want a hooded version of
Yeah,
this.
we got you. Like a scuba hoodie.
Yeah.
We're making one. It's gonna be
Oh,
really
sick.
nice. Yeah. So I'll let you know when we got a proto to test out.
Perfect. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Sweet. Yeah. I mean, like I said earlier, the stink factor with it, but it I've been impressed with it as a mid layer
Mhm.
as well, because it surprisingly breaks quite a bit of wind. You don't have a lot of transfer of wind through it, but it also breathes fairly well for what it is. Like I was wearing it, digging a snow pit
Yeah.
to get my tent set up, and I was really sweaty. And my concern
Mhm.
was I don't know how well this is going to pull that moisture from my body,
Right.
which is a concern in the winter
Big time.
because if you're wet, you're going to get cold, and then hypothermia is obviously a concern. But I think it did a nice job considering that I was wearing a polyester base layer underneath it,
Mm,
and so I don't have like the full scientific here's exactly how it performed, but having never worn a fleece layer like this as a mid layer
yep,
and in that fiber as well from the alpaca, I feel like it does a good job at pulling that moisture from your body, but also
it
drying
does.
quickly.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, what you were saying about the alpaca, it essentially, even with a polyester base layer, functions mechanically to wick that moisture off your body and pull it.
Yeah,
And so
yeah,
with the hydrophobic, hydrophilic attributes that it has. It is, that being said, it's very warm. And we're even working to come out with a lighter version because that it's really warm, like the that fleece that you're wearing. So
yeah, yeah.
we want to make something that's even lighter, especially with the packable story and really for outdoor. I mean, really going up a face of a mountain hiking, you know, that PakaCloud wouldn't be my garment of choice for intense aerobic activities, but everything else and on the flip. And it keeps you very warm in any condition. And so, and to your point, if you even sweat in it, you'll still be fine. But it is,
Yeah.
I think, like any fleece, right? I mean, unless you go into the really functional ones, which is what we're developing, like grid fleeces and those sorts
Hmm.
of like the R1, Patagonia made stuff like
Yeah,
that.
yeah. What's the gram per square meter weight
That's
of
250.
this? That's
But we're
250.
planning to come
Okay,
out with
so
the
it's
220 this fall, so it's
okay.
gonna be even lighter.
Gotcha.
Mhm.
Yeah, because I guess I mean a 3 season kind of warm weather base layer would be 150 ish.
Right.
Would you do something in that range, or is that
Yeah, I
or is that
mean,
too light for this
you can
type
even
of
go
application?
one-sided, you can go drop lining. There's so many different routes to take it, of fleece. But we're with a fleece, you want to cover the stitch in the inside, and so there's a level of like a limitation there for sure. But like this base layer, 170 GSM, we can do that in other garments.
Anything else you want to share about PakaCloud or
No, we're just excited. I mean, the interest was insane from our community, and we're going to be coming out with such great product and new developments this year.
I want to go back a little bit and dive more into, I guess, some of the culture aspect of what you're doing. Something that stuck out to me pretty heavily on your website and doing some research and stuff was just that the aspect of providing jobs and like skilled labor
Mhm.
and what it's like to work with these families, that what kind of impact,
Mm,
and I guess this is a way for you to be really, really proud of what you've been able to accomplish. But I see that one brand has been able to make a pretty large impact on many families' lives in providing skilled labor, good good jobs, and opportunities for people. Like, why is that so important to you? Because I think it would be so easy to just be like, okay, we're gonna work with these families that have all these alpacas. We're gonna get the fiber. See ya. Like,
mhm.
thanks so much. We'll see you in 2 months when we come
Need more.
back. Like,
Right.
yeah, why is that relationship so important?
I mean, we don't exist without um, these partners, the weavers, the alpaqueros. They're what make PAKA everything. And so for us, in working directly with them, you learn a lot about their needs, their desires, their goals, and find really awesome opportunities through that. The best sort of ideas get generated when you're closest to whether consumer or creator. And so
Hmm.
we've just been really making that as close as possible. Within the impact, the Weaver community has grown substantially from what was, five Weavers and the original hoodie. now over 200 Quechua women weavers in the Sacred Valley that are head weaver Nilda Kalnaupa, who's like this historical figure that has built the most unbelievable NGO for this weavers, what they're called, Centro Textile CTTC. And the project has just been amazing to work alongside Nilda, who the goal is to preserve this tradition that was from the Inca. And so all of the knowledge that exists in the designs, in the techniques, in the natural dyes, in the way they use the earth, they have this phrase, lo que viene de la tierra vuelve a la tierra, what comes from the earth returns back to it. That's their
Hmm.
philosophy. And so we've
Oh, that's cool.
infused that into every garment that we make. And so, like what we were saying at the beginning, it is authentically present in everything that we make from, and that has created an impact for through building this modern garment that you know the outdoor industry adopts, is able to create a lot more impact. And beyond that, the scholarships that we're able to provide, we have been to young high achieving Peruvian women from the most rural parts of the Andes Mountains, having now sent, gosh, over I think 16 young Peruvian women to university for their tuition. Because for us,
Oh, wow.
it's also allowing enabling a self-empowering loop back into the community for that like these people that and these powerful young women that return back and are improving already their communities. So just really being connected to them. And beyond that, the alpaqueros and the way we're working alongside them right now to develop a project that can give back and improve their lives and the well-being of the alpacas, is something that we've been developing. So we really are connected to our source in so many ways, whether it's the weaver impact and the woman's signature on each sweater that you get, or it's the traceability in not only knowing where your things come from, but directly improving them with your purchase.
Wow, that's amazing. The scholarship thing, I think, like that's huge impact, and I didn't I didn't realize that aspect, but that's huge, especially for small communities. When I was there in 2017, we went to Cusco and enjoyed Cusco and Aguas Caliente, and
Hmm.
then Machu Picchu, and I mean that was incredible in its own right. And anybody that has the opportunity to go to Machu Picchu should take the opportunity because it's I mean,
Big time.
the Inca culture is an amazing part of history, and I it, maybe in some ways it gets overshadowed by the Roman Empire or
Mm.
the Spaniards, in the sense that I mean the Spaniards moved into, there's a lot of Spanish culture in Cusco,
Oh, like built
right?
on top of the Inca. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, yeah, it's crazy. Which the whole city of Cusco is amazing. But the point I'm getting at is when we moved outside of that and went to a different region of the country and got to see a lot of the smaller communities, what I fell in love with was the people there. It's a beautiful country. It's got so much variety, from the Amazon, incredible waterfalls. I mean, Lima is a really interesting city, and but at the end of the day, like, my best memories of being in Peru
Yep.
were the people and like that culture, and going to see some of the Inca sites, but also just like we're gonna go have dinner with a local family, and they cared so much about us, but they also shared so much of them with us. It was like, how can I not love you? Like, you're so kind, you're genuine, you're giving, and
Learned so much.
yeah, they're just incredible people. So I think that's my personal connection to your company, in like, I love
Mm.
Peru because I've been there, and it's very interesting to me from that aspect.
Yeah.
And I think it's just amazing that you're giving back so much as well. So
Thank you. Yeah, Gisela, our head of Peru, has really pioneered that traceability program and works directly with the weavers. And we're with the Cusco store that we're going to be opening, really inviting our community to come down as well in May for
Yeah,
our grand
maybe
opening.
expand on that a little bit. What are you working on? Because you're all direct
Have been
off of your
digital.
website right now,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. And for like the, with how stores and connected and physical our brand is, it's been 100% digital in terms of connecting consumers. On the flip side, we've grown to where we are all digital. And so for us to have our physical flagship that we're creating right now in Cusco, where the brand started, and for the team to emanate out of and everything that this brand is so exciting for us right now. And we're in the right, like last, or not last, but right in the trenches working through this flagship project, and it's going to be finished over the coming months. And then we're inviting our whole community down for a grand opening in May. Would love to have you be a part of that. And that's going to really be a place to share what you're talking about, which is who we are and our culture. And you find PAKA down there. I really think it will resonate a lot more with people than on a random street in the US, and
Hmm.
just for me, that felt like the best thing to do, to really have a physical space, and then also behind it, like an office for team and adventurers, videographers, people that are going and being a part of the brand, and in this new project Alpaca that we're going to be developing for impact. So now we have a real physical space, and people listening that want to come visit, or it's all open, and there's gonna be a coffee center inside of it, and an adventure center too. And so it's
Oh,
really
that's
more.
awesome.
It's more than just a store. It's going to be like a inspiration space.
Well, and it's in before we started recording, you were talking a little bit about it, and I've been to that square in
Hmm.
Cusco where it is, and it's such a cool part of the city. Like there's so
Yeah.
much going on there. There's like two really big cathedrals or
Yep.
like basilicas
Yes.
that are in the
Exactly.
square as well. And
You can just Google Plaza de Armas and look it up. But if you're not
yeah,
listening,
and it's such a, I mean, it's beautiful. That place is
it's
amazing.
magic. Yeah, and every
Yeah.
day thousands of people are flying in from around the world to go to Machu Picchu.
Yeah, and then they can stop and get a really awesome, high performance piece of apparel that help their experience so much more. Yeah, that's
Definitely, and
awesome.
we want to be able to also bring that and pay that forward with adventure communities as well, of bringing our gear out to the locals, and giving back for them to also be having that gear, and a give back model.
Yeah, I love it. I guess to wrap up, the last thing I would invite you to do is what's the best way for people to follow what PAKA is doing,
Gosh, I mean, I think first and foremost, our email is our greatest outlet to connect with our community, and the store,
like your
like everything that,
newsletter?
yeah, and that's just on the
Okay.
site. You can sign up to that, but the Instagram, just at PAKA, PAKA. We also have an SMS list that you can sign up to as well, where we'll send out, texts to, like, exclusively to our community for, say, like the new fleece launch or something before it goes really public. Um, for, yeah, just like kind of our community. And so we really prioritize our community and building the values of who we are, with integrity and trust, and paying it forward to this community that's working together to change the industry. And so come join this mission that we're all on, and check your tags as much as possible. Think about what you're wearing, consuming, who's making it, and the impact there, because that that's it's beautiful, and like you said, can be worn for generations.
I love it. I love it a lot. I've just been I've been so impressed, and it's why I wanted to sit down and have this chat with you and
Thank you, it means a
kind of get
lot.
more of a behind the scenes of what you're doing. And I'm really really excited to see more of the product. For everybody watching, I highly recommend checking out PAKA. And
Thank you.
if what Kris if what Kris has has shared hasn't already convinced you that it's worth checking out, then um, spend some time on their website and see see what stands out to you. But thank you so much for taking the time and sharing your story and the mission of PAKA. And some of
Thank
the
you.
manufacturing stuff. So yeah. Anything else you want to share?
That's it. I appreciate what you're doing for the outdoor industry.
Great. Thanks, Kris. I just want to thank Kris again for his time. Super fun to sit down and just get kind of the ins and outs of what PAKA is doing. I definitely recommend checking him out. As you saw, I love the product. I've been enjoying it and I would absolutely recommend it. So thanks for watching today, guys. Let me know what you think about these podcast style interviews and if you'd like to see more of them on the channel. Also, check out my Patreon and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Hope you guys have an awesome day. We'll catch you in the next one. See you later.